Good day and welcome to this demonstration of the site management application for the SMAX platform. The purpose of this application is to assist organizations in managing people coming and leaving the office premises. The application consists of two components. The one application would be visitors, the other one for employees. The notion for visitors is to allow visitor registration via the self-service portal by employees that are planning visitors or guests coming to the offices for specific business purposes. As part of the shift from a purely work from home model to a hybrid model, organizations has got employees that are coming to the office, and this application allows employees to plan their visits coming to the office so that organizations, and especially environmental health and safety officers, can manage the flow of people coming and going into the organization's premises. This demonstration will be covered in two parts. We will first focus on the visitor registration app and then do the employee register. If we go, this is the service portal app for the SMAX platform. If we click on the facilities tab or tile, we will see a couple of options come available, focused on the employee as well as the visitor. So for this purposes, we're going to do registration for the visitor. We're going to provide some details for the visitor. We like to keep this as simple as possible so that it can be quick and efficient. Who's the visitor? What company is he coming from? What is his email address so that we can make contact via email. Parking required. For this one, we'll say there is parking required. Just say registration, and when is the date of the visit. Now, for this purposes, I'm going to specify today at 4 o'clock our time. There we go, and I can submit. What is expected in the background is to happen is a visitor registration request for this. The host, which is the person that logged the request, is notified that is logged the request, and the customer, due to the fact that we've got their email address, the visitor will also get a notification. So we can go to the facilities app available from SMAX, and what we would see is in a typical scenario, we would have a front-facing office like the reception area, or any entry point to the business, that there would be someone that mans that, and what they will do is this will be their view from the application perspective, so they can have a specific view in visitors that are planned to arrive the next day, tomorrow, or visitors that's supposed to be coming today. Right, so just so that we get the automation going, which I've paused. We can see here, here's the visitor registration app record that I just submitted. And we will see there's a workflow associated to this. And let's quickly work through the workflow. And we can see when the request is created, it would be in the new phase. And once it's submitted, it's in the planned phase. There's automation in the background that based on the record being a specific timestamp, it will then automatically move to the arrival phase, allowing the view which I previously specified. At this point in time, for the demo purposes, to capture the flow, we paused it so that I can demonstrate the workflow happening. Now, what will happen from a workflow perspective is it will then automatically move to the arrival phase, and this is now emulating when that person comes into the office premises, that receptionist or that person at the front of the organization awaits his entry, and typical things that will happen now. So from a typical perspective, we would hand out a pass number for this person to be able to walk inside the premises. We now know what parking bay he utilized, and we know on what location of the premises are we at. So we can say he's now at building 1, and obviously this site lookup is defined to specifically look for the corporate office areas. Additional information which is important, especially with this, is obviously COVID-related questions that we can ask, so that we trace, or if there is someone that potentially became sick whilst this visitor was on our location, on our premises, we need to notify them that there was a person that was sick, and please look out. So typical questions: have you been tested for COVID? Yes or no. If we say no, no other questions are asked. If it's yes, we will get additional questions like when was the COVID test date? Let's say it was last week. Was the result positive or negative? I'm just going to say negative now, hopefully, as far as I know. Is the visitor wearing a mask? Yes or no? Yes, he is. And what is the temperature that we measure this person? So 36. And again, to ensure that we can make contact with this person in case something happens, we've got a cell phone number or contact number for this person. And then as part of normal environmental health and safety validations, we need to verify certain questions from a COVID symptoms perspective. These are typically high-level symptoms that are associated with any fevers and chills, yes or no, dry cough, and these types of things. So please note, all of these questions are mandatory, and there will be a mandatory flag for all of them. If they're not populated and we want to transition, I'm just going to populate them so that we can be efficient and move on to the next phase. Once all the questions have been completed, including my temperature and contact number reading, the tag can proceed to check-in. Now what we can do is we can either save the record and the receptionist can send a mail to the person or the host which has been identified when the record was created or the request was submitted. Here you can see it was automatically populated. I can telephone this guy, or potential enhancement could be if we've got the Teams integration, Microsoft Teams integration enabled, we can do a Microsoft Teams call. Now this person is not yet on site. We can see he's arrived, and for this person to be on site, we need to be able to sign him in. So the person sitting at the reception area, that is the, let's call it the gate for people to come on premises, can select the check-in button. And once you press this, we will see automatically the signed in person is automatically populated as well as the date. This allows us to be able to verify and validate in our reporting period who was on our site, when were they on the site, and who allowed them on site. Again, from a workflow perspective, we can say the person is now on site. And if the person wants now to check out, he's leaving the site, he needs to enter pass back, we can say checkout, and this again will do the similar action. It will provide a date stamp of when was this person signed out, as well as who signed them out. Might not necessarily be the same person. And for the visitor registration application, this ends the record or the life cycle of this record. What has happened in the background is it has sent this data from a COVID perspective, as well as from a date perspective, as well as from a site perspective, to a COVID register, so that we can apply in track and trace requirements if something does happen, or just to validate how many people were on our premises at a specific time interval or during a specific time. Right, so that is the visitor registration app. So let's move on to the employee registration app. I'm just going to click over there to default back to the record. For this, we again go to the service portal, and in this scenario, I am an employee that wants to visit the premise, that's planning to come to the office today. I'm currently in my car driving to the office. I've got a little bit of time. My manager phoned me and said I need to quickly come to the office for a specific meeting, and I can do this via my mobile application or via, I'm currently sitting at a customer site, and I'll quickly log on to the service portal. I go to facilities again, and now I select the employee registration application or employee registration request. In certain information of that the system already captures or acknowledges of me is already captured, pre-populated, and certain things not. Again, we have to ask the COVID symptoms. So at a high level, just provide some feedback on these things. And up for my bandwidth to keep up. All of these questions. once all the questions has been completed, which site am I coming to? So for this use case, I'm just going to select, I'm coming to corporate building 1, the ground floor. When am I coming? Let's again say today. Same questions as for visitors. Have you been tested for COVID? Yes or no? So if I say no, no additional questions. If I say yes, obviously the same question. When were you tested? Let's say again last week. Result of the test, again negative as far as I can remember, or no, hopefully. Have you had the COVID vaccination? If this was the first time, obviously this would be blank. But due to the fact that I previously answered it, it pre-populates that based on my record. And if there was any travel history, you can see I traveled to the UK. I made this entry at this time. I traveled to the UK on May 1st, returned on the 14th, and I utilized the plane. If any changes was there, or if I need to add any additional updates, I can just say add to travel history. This is all about understanding our risk for the organization, right? Did I travel via state lines, or did I travel interprovincially, or did I travel abroad? If I select travel abroad, to which country did you travel to? So it asks additional questions. When were you, or what country did you go to? For this one, let's say I went to Germany. Date of travel. When were you? When did you fly there? So let's say I flew there on the 15th. I returned on the 20th. And then means of transport. Obviously, in some circumstances, plane would be the default one. But for this one, let's just select plane. And I can submit this record. Now what I'm expecting in the background to happen is employee registration record is created for today. And again, two types of scenarios can now play out. Number one is when the employee comes to the office, again, there would be a reception area or a controlling area where people enter the premises. And again, that receptionist or that security person or whomever mans that entry point can validate that there's a request like this, or the employee can self-check in. But for the purposes of this demo, let's just quickly look at the record before we check in, so that we can validate what type of data is stored, what the data looks like, and the workflow. And then for this demonstration purposes, due to the fact that the manual check-in will work exactly the same as for the visitor registration, we will do a self-check-in. So let's move across to the application. As we exited the visitor registration previously, we can see there. So the employee registration and all other COVID type related data would be stored under the COVID register. So I'm going to click on COVID register. And what I'm expecting to see is my default view would be approvals plan, arrivals plan for today. You can see the record that we just submitted is already over there. And this would be where a person that's manning the entry point of the organization would be waiting or sitting, and he can review this record and see all the arrivals planned for today, and he can provide a check-in or not based on the requirement. As the screen displays, you can see a lot of the information is quite similar. We've got the check-in, check-out button over there, as I said previously, for that quality or that control gate as the people come onto the premises. Before we deep dive into the type of data that's available, let's quickly look at the workflow. Very similar workflow to the visitor registration app planned. We've submitted a record, it's planned, as well as as soon as the person on the date, again we pause it, but there's an automation that if the date is similar as today, there's an automation that transitions from the planned phase to the arrival phase. And this allows the record to validate only records that are on the arrival phase, so that we know who the people are that's coming to the premises today. The check-in, whether it is from a manual perspective at the entry point or whether it's via the service portal, will navigate or transition the record to the on-site, so we know exactly how many people are on-site at any point in time. When the checkout happens, either again via manual input from the entry point or the exit point, or a self-checkout, navigates it to the left side, and then there's automation that at the end of the day closes out the record and moves it to the closed phase. Some information that is required, again, if for this specific employee, which is me now, if we had the contact number for this person stored as data, it would be automatically populated. For this one, we can see we've got no contact number for this employee. When is he come on site? What is his temperature? And here we can see all the questions that we asked as part of the service portal record has been pre-populated over there. Great. So let's move back to the service portal so that we can perform a self-check-in. Jumping across to the service portal, the screen is where we left it last time, so I'm just going to default to the main page. We click on the facility style again, and now we look for the option that says employee self-check-in. I'm going to click on that one, and remember we spoke about that auto transition to the arrival phase. At this point in time, that automated transition has already occurred, and we would say there is the record. Now over there, we specify this is the record that I'm checking in. I'm at the entry point. I can select, what's my temperature currently as a validation. I am coming to this building, and because we know which building and which floor I'm going to, we know what office spaces is available. I'm going to select, and once I select a specific office space, that record is then blocked for the purposes of whilst I'm there. This is to allow environmental health and facilities to know what spaces of what locations on the floor or the building was utilized, so that we can send a cleaning crew after the fact, or allowing again for the track and tracing capability. Now I'm going to select that one, and then we say submit. The request was submitted. Now we jump back to the record to see what happened on the background for this record. As we see on the operator portal on the record, we can see here's the record, and we can say see the phases of transition that the person is now on site. So if we look at what the record looks like, we can see all the high-level details, and we can see that the office space that we booked has been selected, and all the data is still stored, and then the workflow we can now see on site. Now the employee is doing his day-to-day job, and also be very important, when did the person arrive on site and who checked him in. Obviously it would be the same person as the employee due to the fact that he did a self-check-in, but if it was a manual check-in or check-out, different people would be applied. Now in this use case, we're going to go back to the service portal to perform this checkout, but we can do a manual checkout of guys leaving the premises, and the security guard, the receptionist, he tags out, we can check out. Let's do a self-checkout so that we can see that workflow resulting. Again, from a service portal perspective, where we left off. So we go back to the facility style, and now we select the option that says employee checkout, employee self-checkout. Right? And again, what is important is these capabilities are available from a screen or from a computer as we are currently on, or from a mobile device, which allows us to be mobile. Again, for checkout, theoretically we will only have one checkout, and I submit. As simple as that. What would happen now in the background is, remember, we booked a space. My booking or my booking on the space has been now removed, so that that space is not booked. EH&S or facilities can be sent a mail that says this person has left this space, it needs to be cleared, as well as from a record perspective. If we click on this record, and I purposely didn't refresh it so that we still have it available in this view, otherwise it would have been moved out already. We will now see the workflow has changed to left side. So we know this person is not on site anymore, and automation will kick in based on the schedule that at the end of the day, the record needs to be closed. And again, we can see when did the person leave the site, as well as who performed the checkout. And this then allows, then this record is basically now completed. So this is great. Now we've managed the person, a visitor coming onto the premises. We've got employees coming to the premises. We want to know from a a reporting perspective, as well as from a training perspective, how many employees came to the offices. So we've got a view that says how many employees were at the offices. We can graph this by location or per date and these type of things. We've got one that is specifically focused on guests. These are all views, right? When did the visitors come to site? Where are they? Again, per location. And then the one that potentially is very interesting to environmental health would be the Enterprise COVID Register. And the Enterprise COVID Register is a record of all of the people, employees as well as guests, when they came to site, what sites. So we can very easily go and say columns, show me per site. Per site. And immediately the view can update, so we can see who came to what site. We know the dates because of date stamps. We know who they are. We know how to contact them. And this allows us to be transparent based on the potential health issues that might arise at the site, or about cleaning, or we exactly know what's going on from a compliance perspective and keeping our visitors and our employees safe during these troubling times. I thank you for listening. I hope this application is useful and provides you with a mechanism to manage your site more accurately. Thank you and have a great day.